Okay, the last item is G4.
Item G4, information on financial assistance to SG Atkins CDC for the purchase of property for revitalization.
This is for information only.
That's correct,
Miller,
Chairman
you going to
Clark.
present this?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of council. Good afternoon. As Chairman Clark mentioned, this is an information-only item. The property that we're talking about is 1539 Walltown Street, which you can see here. The Simon Green Atkins Community Development Corporation, or the Atkins CDC, is a nonprofit organization focused on revitalizing neighborhoods surrounding Winston-Salem State University. As you also know, the city has previously partnered with the CDC on the Enterprise Center, which is on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, as well as the implementation of the East End Master Plan. The CDC has approached the city for possible financial assistance to acquire and revitalize the abandoned Nissen Wagon Works property located at the address here. After serving as Nissen's manufacturing center, it transitioned to a Western Electric facility through the 1990s and has since been abandoned and fallen into disrepair. The potential project is in its early stages, which is why it is an information item this afternoon, with details to be determined. The CDC envisions the first phase to activate approximately 96,000 square feet into co-warehousing space. This would provide multiple businesses with the opportunity to use shared warehouse space without having to purchase or lease an entire building, providing flexibility for small businesses to grow their warehouse space needs as their business grows. This project could accomplish the goal of revitalizing an abandoned property by providing increased investment, job opportunities for those in the area, and decreasing blight. Several issues remain to be navigated, including a facility assessment, rezoning assessment, and evaluating environmental mitigation. Any federal involvement, such as brownfields assistance, would require a review by the State Historic Preservation Office to determine if the project would have an adverse effect. Ms. Carol Davis, who is Executive Director of the Atkins CDC, is here. She has a presentation for the committee.
Okay, Ms. Davis. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. I'd have welcomed you earlier. Please come up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark.
Give your name and address for the record.
Carol Davis, Executive Director of Atkins CDC, 1922 South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in Winston-Salem.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of the committee. I am here today because I believe this property represents an opportunity for our emerging entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just for co-warehousing space, but for co-working space and for adaptive reuse of a site that has obviously been in disrepair for a long time. As Ken mentioned, the Nissen Wagon Works site was there for many years, made a lot of money. Westinghouse was there, made a lot of money. And it was followed by other corporations and businesses who were there and then moved away and left this eyesore in the Southeast Ward. What we propose to do is work with the city, of course, and other organizations, including those with access to brownfield dollars and construction funds. We've had success with Economic Development Administration and other funders that would help us bring this building back into the leasable square footage. And so currently it is a 9-acre space owned by a private for-profit owner who purchased it last year. And he purchased it from another for-profit owner. And both of them, after reviewing the site in detail, determined that it was this deal had some hair on it, so to speak. It was a little more than these for-profit developers wanted to get involved with, because primarily, before you could lease any of it, you need to go in and do remediation. I have a lot of pictures here. I'm not sure
Can you
exactly
point
what
out
you
what
have
part
in
of the, what
front of you.
buildings we're talking about here with your pointer there?
I'm sorry?
Can you point out what buildings we're talking about? I see you got a pointer
Yes.
there.
So I'll show you here. This is the historic site as it existed. And then this photo here, you can kind of see this part right here where I've moved in the cursor is where the roof has already fallen in and this has been demolished. This.
Was there a fire?
It wasn't a fire. It was ice and snow on top of the roof, then it collapsed. Yes. Right here is the police station. Right here is the post office. And here is warehouse space that we believe can be adaptively reused. This adjoining is additional warehouse space. So there's about 30,000 square feet in there and another 25,000 square feet there. And then this space here is a space that we would like to reuse as a food truck commissary. And then this little spot here could be an open air cafe. Over in this area, there's more building that needs to be demolished. And there's also a historic smokestack, similar to the smokestack down at Innovation Quarter that we believe is an architectural point of interest. I have the exact square footages here. And I didn't tell you all of them because in total there's 96,300. So let me see. In here, there's a total of 37,000. Then over here, we've got a total of 49,000. So between all of the existing space that we would like to adaptively reuse, there is 96,000 square feet.
Okay.
So what we've seen in other communities, ways that communities are using these spaces, and this is what it currently looks like. Has anyone been on Wildtown Street lately? You're familiar with how it looks. This is kind of from the side, from the back, and this is the interior. So the current owner has done some upfit inside the buildings in terms of just getting the electricity in all of the warehouse spaces again, making sure that the roof doesn't leak on most of the square footage. This is an example of where they've actually set up some shelving that could be used for storage. And it's really massive and very impressive inside in size when you go inside. But obviously you can see there's some repair and some construction that would need to be done. But that's after the remediation. So what we found that's very exciting, and the reason I'm excited about this space is, in 2015 we had community meetings and did a lot of brainstorming with community members about what this space could be. In 2016, a landscape architecture class from North Carolina A&T spent a semester on this project and came up with a lot of suggestions, including housing, restaurant space, recreational space, medical clinic, community garden, et cetera. And then when we met the current owner, this current owner, his name is Daryl McCall, he's into leasing warehouses. And he bought it and thought that he could quickly lease this 96,000 square feet for about $3 a foot to make about $300,000 a year in revenue and or $25,000 a month. And that caught my attention in a way that none of the other planning sessions had, because I said, well, if this space is reusable and can generate that kind of revenue, then of course we'd have the cash flow to do any of these other projects on the surrounding space where the old demolition will have to occur and cleanup of what has already been demolished. So if you keep that in mind, that there is a strong revenue generating potential here, it makes this whole site a little more attractive, at least in my mind. And so what's happening in other cities, and here's the breakdown of the space. Are projects like the loading dock in Raleigh, where the owner is offering Wi-Fi workspace for packaging and delivery and shipping, heated warehouse space, loading docks, temperature-controlled pallet jacks, hand trucks, et cetera. And this serves the many businesses that were formed during COVID, where we had an explosion in e-commerce. A lot of entrepreneurs turned to e-commerce because, of course, face-to-face retail pretty much shut down. And there's a growing trend with Amazon and Shopify and other e-commerce entities that are helping leverage these small independent businesses to grow and actually make money globally as they introduce products to the market through these large e-commerce platforms. In Raleigh, this is what the loading dock looks like on the outside. They have plenty of outdoor usable space for the public and for those who rent co-warehousing space inside. They also have co-working space inside. And in this particular instance, they allow users to have flexible sized spaces for storage, packaging, shipping, and even co-working. And they use chain link fence in this part of the building to create these private, secured spaces. And these people pay monthly. Some of them have short-term leases, some of them have 12-month leases, and some longer. And as you can see, people are doing business. This is an entrepreneurial facility, and it's very popular. This particular developer has done 5 spaces in Raleigh. Started with 1, was very well received, and they quickly expanded to add more. I had some additional slides, but this kind of model is popping up at Camp North End in Charlotte. That's a massive space where they're going to develop approximately, I think, 1 million square feet of space in what was once an industrial site. There's other models in Atlanta, New York, LA, other cities around the country, and it's something that is growing in popularity. And similarly, even if someone's just using it for storage, we know that the self-storage industry is one of the most best performing real estate assets that we've had in the country for the last few years. So whether it's co-working, co-warehousing, or self-storage, all under one roof, I feel like there's strong market support and a lot of interest in this kind of project. It would be a hub for the Southeast Ward. We envision using the indoor space and the outdoor space for events, in addition to the workshops and entrepreneurial support that we already provide at the Enterprise Center, where we have a small business administration, women's business center. We have a new relationship with the county's IDA program. We have our relationship, of course, with Winston-Salem State Center for Entrepreneurship. We would combine all of these resources that we currently have at our disposal and translate that over to this new space. We'd, of course, bring on partners who want to work with us, but in order of getting the work done, we'd have to start with the remediation. So we'd have to have site control. We'd have to work closely with the brownfield environmental quality folks. This is already a site where Phase 1 and Phase 2 work has been done. The Phase 1 work is kind of outdated, but the Phase 2 was just finished in June of 2022. So we'd have to get site control. We'd have to work on cleaning up the brownfield issue. We would demolish what's not usable here and clean that up, make the space just look better to start with. And then when these spaces here are usable, we would immediately start leasing them to generate some of the revenue that I believe is possible.
Okay. Any questions at this point? Mr. McIntosh?
Not a question, but a comment. I guess sort of a question. I was down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We went down with the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce to look at how that area prepared for the arrival of Michelin and BMW down there and kind of what some of the spinoffs were. They have a little bit different model, but the building is amazingly similar to what we're looking at here. And they're more of an entrepreneurial startup hub. But it just strikes me as this is space that in the real estate market here in Winston is incredibly difficult to find. Small spaces. I mean, if you can go pay for a new tilt-up, building, that's fine. But if you're looking for small to mid-size spaces to run your shipping, receiving, or even light industrial stuff out of it, it's really, really difficult to find. So, I mean, I think this is a real market opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, I think as a next step, I just wrote down some notes here. We would need to know, at least environmental issues. You mentioned brownfield issues. There may be asbestos, I don't know. But the big question is, what's it going to cost to acquire the property and to do everything you got to do to it? So I think that would be the next step that we'd be looking at.
Right. And so the reason we did not present any concrete numbers here today is because there has not been a complete assessment of the building envelope. And I didn't want to give you a $2.5 million number without knowing if something else would be uncovered in a full inspection. As I mentioned, there has been a Phase 1 and a Phase 2. So that is a little more clear in terms of what we have to contend with, but I don't have multiple proposals to compare one to another. But the brownfield remediation and then getting a real handle on the building envelope, demoing what needs to be demoed, cleaning up, making it all just look more attractive from the street while we get this other part leased. I could throw out a number, but I don't want you to hold me to it.
I need a good number.
So I'm not going to throw it out.
And I would suggest you're working with Mr. Keith. Where'd you go? Oh, Ken, excuse me. He's the man to work with, so I would suggest, unless I hear to the contrary, that y'all continue to work. But I think we need a very valid number because working with old buildings can be expensive.
Right. Well, I would love if you just set something aside. Don't give all the money away because we'll be coming back, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.